Brother Man is putting on his historian's cap once again to examine what the future holds in 2021 and beyond. Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. So, the year 2020 is near about over. Thank goodness. Very little positive came out of this year, and I'm pretty sure you would agree to that. But what I wanted to do in this particular video is examine this particular period of time right now and its immediate future compared to parallel periods of time in the past to see what we can expect going into the immediate future if we're interested, or if you're interested in investing your wealth. What can you expect, right? And out of society in general, what can we look forward to? All right. Now, with the caveat that no two epochs of time are ever completely analogous, there are in fact certain parallels that can be drawn from this period of time compared to the period immediately after the great Spanish flu pandemic of the late 19 teens and very early 1920s. At that particular time, the Spanish flu strand, not sure exactly where it originated, but many people believe it originated in the United States of America, then spread by American troops being dispatched into Europe for the First World War. Then it sweeps Britain, sweeps France, Germany, Russia, Italy, Spain, eventually all over the place, infecting hundreds of millions and eventually causing the deaths of between 20 and 100 million persons before it was finally over. Now, the parallel to that period and this current period with the CV-19 pandemic are pretty clear, right? The Spanish flu really targeted industrial economies, just as CV-19 has, right? So, although it is a global pandemic, we'll notice that there are enormous spikes in infections and deaths in the United States of America and Western Europe, which are, of course, industrialized economies that were either very slow or very hesitant to take the appropriate necessary actions to slow the spread, right? Okay, now another parallel was the political leadership. So the Wilson administration in the late 19 teens they did not want to really give the public the straight and narrow about the severity of Spanish flu. Uh, Partly because they did not want to damage the war effort, but also they just didn't want to create any more angst or unease in the American people who are already shocked by the nightmarish global military campaign that was going on at the same time, right? So they desperately downplayed it, as did the governments in Europe for the very same reason. Again, definite parallels to this current time. Also, uh, there was and is uh, a very interesting parallel to our current time that I think is often missed by historians. In the United States of America, that particular period of time was marked by severe racial, ethnic uh, contention. There were violent. There was violence in large metropolitan areas throughout the country, based along racial lines. I live here in Houston. There was a tremendously violent event in the late summer of 2018 here in Houston, which led to the deaths of five police officers and many other civilians. And then the military guys who were responsible were put on trial. Many of them were executed, but then it all took place in the rubric of the racial outrages that were going on in the United States of America. So there's clearly a parallel there, right? Now, how are things different? Well, things were different or are different in this time because we're not coming off of a cataclysmic, nightmarish global military action like the First World War was. So we do not have that overhanging the pandemic. Also, at the particular time in history, the United States of America did not have anywhere near the massive level of debt that we have at this point. So going forward, that overhang of debt is going to affect the economy, affect finances in a very different way than the overhang of the financial situation after the Spanish flu pandemic. So those are two very different situations that we are facing today that we did not have back at that time. All right. So what did the years 1920, 1921, and beyond, what did that do for our nation? Well, there was a very desperate means to get back to normalcy. In fact, that was the campaign slogan of the Warren Harding campaign of 1920, was a return to normalcy, right? So after the First World War and also all the racial strife and the Spanish flu pandemic, people wanted to get back to normal. So, I mean, obviously, in our time, we would love to get back to normal, and we'll put normal in air quotes, right? Well, the economy of that particular period did never returned to the pre-World War One economy. No way. The war had jacked up industrial productions for armaments. It had done tremendous things as it relates to the agricultural economy, which at that time was still a huge part of the American economy. Now it's much less so these days, but at that particular point in time, it tremendously changed the agricultural society in this country. Also, it issued in the income tax, right, in order to finance the First World War, and the pandemic right after that also issued in tremendous changes in architecture, in other areas of finance as it related to financing healthcare and things like that, right? So, can we expect to see that again? Well, I think we'll see some part of that. Will it be an exact replication? I doubt it. We've already made a tremendous amount of progress over the last 100 years in healthcare. Still have a long way to go, but we've made significant progress. And so that particular part of it probably will not be replicated. What will be replicated, however, is the changes in architecture, right? I believe going forward, buildings will be made to not to jam people together and have them in confined quarters. I see the possibility um, of removable roof arenas, more of them. There are already many of them out there, but I could see many more of them out there. I also see, of course, the trend of persons not reporting to a workplace at all, right? If they can do their work from home or from some offsite to where they're not around people, that has taken hold and that will continue to progress throughout the 2020s. Now, the Roaring Twenties, which I've heard people say, well, you know, the Spanish flu and the First World War gave way to the Roaring Twenties. Yes and no. And this is where I think the most critical parallel uh, uh, lies. Yes, there was a growing economy, and in fact, there were sectors that were booming, right? But when you study carefully what happened in the 1920s, what you will see was that there was a major inflation in financial assets, the stock market, the bond markets, and even certain office, real estate, housing. Those prices all just inflated amazingly right after the pandemic and the First World War. Now, that all came to a crashing end in the late 1920s and 1930s, but for a while, that was the tour de force in the United States of America was the enormous inflation of financial assets. Now, we've already begun to see the enormous inflation in financial assets since the spring of this year being 2020 still. And that may go on for some period of time, but eventually that will be brought to an end. And when it is brought to an end, oh boy, you're right. We just don't know how devastating it's going to be, but one gets the feeling it will be devastating, right? So that is something to look out for. So those are my thoughts on the parallels of that time and this time. Not exactly analogous, but there are a lot of similarities that I hope can give us some clues on how to move forward in the future. So if you found this video interesting, informative, please smash the like button. Yay, do it for me. Thumbs up. Also, leave a comment. I'd love, love, love to hear what other people think of my analysis and, is it correct or could it be added upon, right? Love to know that. Also, please subscribe. I'd love for you to subscribe to Invest Strong. All right. Thank you so much, friends, and good blessings.